Elias had spent most of his life out at sea, and he thought nothing could surprise him anymore. But on his latest fishing trip, something completely unexpected happened. He came across a strange island that wasn't marked on any of his maps. As soon as he stepped onto the shore, his face went pale. His hand shook as he tried to call 911, but the call wouldn't go through. That's when he noticed no signal, not even one bar. Now what? He had two choices: get back on his boat and leave immediately, or stay and figure out what was going on. The thing was, what he had seen on the island scared him more than anything he'd ever experienced. It looked like something straight out of a movie, but movies were just fiction, right? As he looked around, a chill ran down his back. It felt like he wasn't alone, but that wasn't even the worst part. As he slowly walked along the shore, alert and tense, he suddenly heard a sharp crunch under his foot. Probably a stick, he thought at first, but when he looked down, his stomach dropped. It was a bone. The sky had turned darker and the wind picked up fast, sending waves crashing hard against the shore. A storm was definitely coming. Elias glanced at his boat. It had seen better days. There was no way it could handle rough seas like this. He didn't like it, but he knew he had to stay. As the first drops of rain hit the ground, Elias looked around and knew he had to head into the forest. Thankfully, he'd brought his knife along. It wasn't much, but it made him feel a little safer. He carefully made his way through the trees, searching for some kind of shelter. Even though he was on edge, he couldn't help but notice how wild and beautiful the forest was. After walking for a while, he spotted something through the trees, something that looked like it didn't belong there. It was a small hut made of branches and leaves, clearly put together by someone. Without thinking twice, he ran toward it and ducked under the cover. Hopefully the storm wouldn't last long and he could leave soon. As he sat there waiting for the rain to ease up, he kept glancing around nervously. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was nearby. He remembered the strange warnings he'd seen back on the beach, odd sculptures with carved messages. They had looked like some kind of warning, but he'd ignored them. Now, he regretted that. Whoever had made those signs probably wasn't too friendly, and Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Luckily, the rain stopped not long after and the sky cleared. Sunlight filtered through the trees and birds began chirping again. But just as Elias started to feel a little relief, he heard something that made his heart stop. Footsteps. Without thinking, he bolted in the opposite direction. Whoever or whatever it was, he didn't want to be seen. He had no idea what kind of people might live here, and he wasn't ready to find out. But that rush of fear faded quickly when he realized something worse. He was completely turned around. He didn't know where he was anymore, or how to get back to the beach. He tried to take a breath and think straight. There had to be a way out. If I just walk in a straight line, I've got to hit the edge of the forest eventually, he told himself. Once he made it out, he could head toward the shore, find his boat, and leave this place behind. He tried to stay calm and hopeful, even though it was hard. With no better plan, he picked a direction and stuck with it. Sooner or later, he figured it had to lead somewhere, but this was the moment he made a small mistake, one that would unknowingly take him even deeper into the forest. After walking for about half an hour, Elias started to feel uneasy. He hadn't found any sign of the forest ending, and the trees seemed to be getting thicker. What he didn't notice was how late it was getting. The sun was fading fast, and soon he wouldn't be able to see anything at all. Then something else caught his attention. Movement ahead. Elias spotted someone moving through the trees. A man. And just like that, curiosity took over. Who was this person? And more importantly, could he help Elias get off the island? Quietly, Elias decided to follow him. He stayed hidden, moving slowly behind trees and bushes, careful not to be seen. As he moved, he noticed strange markings carved into some of the trees. It looked like the man had made them. maybe as a way to find his way around the forest. But before Elias could figure out what they meant, everything changed in an instant. The man suddenly stopped, spun around, and raised a bow, an arrow already drawn and pointed right at him. "Who are you?" he demanded, eyes locked onto Elias with suspicion. "I'm just a fisherman," Elias said quickly, holding up his hands. "I found this island by accident. I just want to get back to my boat and go home." "How did you find this place? Who sent you to you?" The man asked, not lowering his weapon. There was something in his voice, deep distrust. Like he'd spent a long time guarding something important, Elias could feel the tension in the air. This island had secrets, and clearly its people weren't used to visitors. "I swear, I just ended up here by accident," Elias said, trying to keep his voice steady. Before Elias could say anything else, the man quickly tied his hands behind his back using a rough vine. Then, with a simple gesture, he motioned for Elias to start walking ahead. As they stepped out of the thick trees, Elias was taken aback by what he saw. A large hidden camp stretched out before him, filled with handmade tents and huts, built from branches, leaves, and other natural materials. It hit him then. This wasn't just a random group of people. He had wandered into a well-hidden community. All around he could feel eyes on him, watching, judging, trying to figure out who he was and why he was there. From the group, a woman stepped forward with an air of authority. Her eyes were sharp, and she carried herself like someone who didn't tolerate nonsense. "Who are you?" she asked firmly, her voice cutting through the quiet. Elias took a breath and explained everything, hoping they would believe he meant no harm. After a moment, the woman gave a nod and two others stepped forward, guiding Elias to a quieter part of the camp. They pointed toward a small tent made of woven leaves. It was clear this was where he'd be staying for the night. As he sat down, Elias's thoughts spun in every direction. What would tomorrow bring? When morning came, Elias woke to the sound of activity all around him. The camp was already in full swing. He watched as the islanders worked together, casting fishing nets into the sea, pulling in fish and organizing supplies. Children helped gather fruits, and others were fixing tools or repairing shelters. A short distance away, the leader spoke quietly with a few elders, then turned her attention back to Elias. "We've talked it over," she said, "and we've decided. If you mean no harm, you'll show us." They laid out a few tasks for him. First, he had to repair a torn fishing net. Then he was sent into the forest to find certain fruits and herbs. Finally, he was asked to start a fire, using only the simple tools they gave him. These weren't just random jobs. They were testing him, not just to see if he could follow directions, but to learn if he had the patience, respect, and focus needed to earn their trust. Every challenge reminded Elias of how strong and self-reliant these people were. Even as sweat ran down his face and his arms got scratched from the forest brush, he didn't give up. He focused hard, copied the knot patterns in the net, picked the right plants, and stayed calm as he struck stones until he got a spark. Later, the leader returned. Her face was serious. "There's one last task," she said. "You'll need to find your way back to the beach you arrived on, alone. No help." Elias glanced toward the forest, knowing how easy it would be to get lost in all that green. Still, he nodded. He wasn't going to back down now. After what felt like hours of pushing through thick brush and second-guessing his path, Elias finally heard something that made his heart leap, the sound of waves crashing. He picked up his pace, pushing past one last cluster of leaves and branches. And there it was, the same beach where everything had started. His boat still floated in the distance, anchored just where he'd left it. A wave of relief washed over him. He had made it. When he returned to the camp to say goodbye, the atmosphere was mixed. Some islanders looked at him with quiet respect. Others whispered among themselves, unsure of what to think. After a long silence, the leader stepped forward. Her voice was calm but clear. "Elias, you've shown us respect. You tried to understand us and you didn't give up. We've decided you may leave." Before he left, they handed him a bundle of supplies, fresh fruit, clean water, and enough fish to last the trip. One of the elders also gave him something small but meaningful, a handmade pendant, shaped from wood and stone. "This is for you," they said, "to remember this place." With the supplies loaded and the pendant tied around his neck, Elias got to work on his boat. Using some of the techniques he'd seen during his stay, he patched up what he could soon. The sails caught the wind, and just like that he was off, leaving the island behind along with the strange and guarded people who had let him in, if only briefly. Out on the open water, Elias couldn't help but reflect. The sea stretched endlessly around him, like it always had, but now it felt different. Like it held more than fish and storms. It held possibility. When the coastline he knew finally appeared, a deep breath escaped him. He had made it home. And as he tied up his boat at the old dock, he realized something. The man who left had changed. He had come back stronger, quieter, and more aware of the world and himself. Thanks for listening to Elias's story. If it moved you even just a little, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It helps more than you know, and who knows where the next story will take us.